this meteor has been creeping towards Earth for a couple hours now.
Yeah, you'd think it would increase acceleration by now. Physics.
But this meteor looks different than others. It looks more crystallized.
Well, we just go to wait and see what happens.
Well, according to my calculations, unless it picks up speed, we're good for several hours, and that if it's anything big, the government will likely deal with it. Until then, let's cover a space movie. So, Destiny Deoxys. Out of all the films I've reviewed thus far, this is the only film that I never saw as a kid. Sure, it came out on Kids WB back in the day, but I didn't get a chance to see it, and I was too poor to buy a DVD/VHS tape of the movie, so I skipped it and moved on. A trend that continued until Victini's movie. Yeah, for about 6 years, I didn't see another Pokemon film. Then, in 2011 or 2012, my girlfriend introduced me to the missing films. So now that I have seen the film thanks to her, and saw it again for the sake of the review, it's time to find out if it was either a hidden gem, or a film that deserves to be forgotten. This is Destiny Deoxys. Our film begins with a World of Pokemon recap, with a meteor at the end of it. Nothing much to really note here in terms of plot, since it's just an introduction to the Pokemon world if you've never seen the prior film/anime. So after that, by the way, reusing clips from the previous movies is totally not worthless padding, we got to a polar region where we get introduced to a pair of researchers named Lund and Yoko, who are observing the Sphere line.
This sounds like a waste of money.
Oh, shut up! This is clearly a great idea. Just like bringing my kid along. Speaking of, say hello to Tori. He'll do stuff more relevant to the film after this scene, but for now, here's some Sphere petting. I'm freaking love that Pokemon. But I guess Deoxys doesn't, because after Tori bears witness to an Aurora Borealis, Deoxys' meteor crashes into the polar region Tori and the researchers are in. Also, Rayquaza's in this movie. Moving on. Hey, I'm important in this movie! Not really. Anyways, after the impact, the area Tori was standing on collapses, and he lands in the area where members of the Sphere line are, and they go around him. And even as more and more of them try to run away, they go around Tori so he doesn't get hurt/injured. But Tori looks terrified, to the point where he even falls unconscious from it. Now, I would complain about how stupid this is, since it's the catalyst to his fear of Pokemon that'll be mentioned later on in the film, but I like to think of it as falling in the middle of traffic and the cars are moving around you to avoid a crash. In that scenario, odds are you'd probably be scared too. So after Tori's father rescues him, we get properly introduced to Deoxys. And what does he do? Creates a shockwave to get a rock a few feet away.
My precious.
But before we can find out what the hell this rock even is, Rayquaza shows up to fight Deoxys. And during this fight, we find out that Deoxys can regenerate from an injury really fast, as shown when Rayquaza blows off his right arm. So as the fight goes on, more things get destroyed, we get to see attack and defense Deoxys for a bit, and then the fight ends with Deoxys getting freaking obliterated by Rayquaza. Well, considering it took a few seconds to regrow an arm, this shouldn't take too much time. 4 years? Really? And it's taken them 4 years to do an experiment on that green rock. Christ almighty. So after that scene, we then cut to Ash and his group heading to the city where Tori is, named LaRue City, and we soon find out that it's a technologically advanced city, with passports, automatic check-ins, robotic trash cans, robots with advanced programming, that kind of reminds me of Cubics for some reason, etc. So why is Ash and the gang here? Because Ash wants to compete in the Battle Tower. So after a gag where Ash tries to run in the opposite direction of what looks like an automatic roadway, we get introduced to Rave, Rebecca, two kids that play no major part in this film, so I'm not going to say their names, and Sid. So Ash decides to go looking for the Battle Tower on his own, and he runs into Tori, who becomes terrified after seeing Ash's Pikachu and runs into a nearby elevator. Ash manages to get inside just before it closes, and funnily enough, the elevator takes them to the Battle Tower, and they get through verification. Wait a minute. If Tori is clearly afraid of Pokemon, as shown with the Pikachu scene, why the hell would he have Pokeballs? Oh yeah, that's right, he doesn't. So you mean to tell me that in the Battle Tower, there is no program to check if you even have Pokemon? That seems like the first program you'd make for this tower, not the security check shit. Come on! But regardless of that, Ash gives Tori one of his Pokemon once he finds out Tori has none, and then we find out Rebecca was supposed to compete, but Ash, quote-unquote, cut in front of her. Yeah, bullshit. He never ran into you, you never appeared in the line. Hell, last time we saw you was on that road, so don't give me that shit. You were probably looking up Gen 4 shit and ended up getting distracted, so don't go blaming this on Ash when it was your own fault. So Ash and Tori get their asses kicked, and then we find out from Yuko that Tori has a fear of Pokemon. Yet in the next scene, he helps send a Plusle mine in after one of them got stuck in the trash can. Yeah, I remember that one time I saw a beetle on someone's face, and I just swatted it off just fine despite my fear of bugs. That's how phobias work. Totally. So Tori runs off and talks to this holograph thingy about what happened, but then Deoxys shows up. By the way, I get used to this shot. They're using it like 3 times before the film is over. After that, Tori goes for a walk, but is followed by Ash. And after an incident with a lot of Wingles, Tori falls on his ass. And after Ash tries to help him, he gets terrified of Pikachu again and shoves Ash. Okay, look, I get it. You're scared of Pokemon. Sometimes, that is. But that guy tried to help you up. The least you could do is say thank you, not fucking shove him. Okay? Yes, he has a Pikachu. Guess what? That asshole tried to fucking help you up. You don't do that. And you know what? Ash agrees with me, as he calls him out on this shit. So after that shit, Brock and the others show up, and Brock decides to cook the gang a meal, and Tori decides to join in. And is also not terrified of the Pikachu literally a few feet away from him that he can plainly see. And yet in the scene after this, where he tries to touch Pikachu to deal with his fear a little bit, he runs off. But in a later scene, he gives Ash and the others Pokemon cookies and isn't terrified of those despite having the Pokemon's faces on it. Okay. If I harp on this shit, we're not gonna get anywhere. But god damn it, this shit is fucking irritating. So after the cookie scene, we get a short bit where Ash and the others bring out their Pokemon, and we get a montage of them doing stuff set to an awful song that I hate. Once that is over with, we then see Deoxys doing shit. And because he is here, that must mean Rayquaza is coming. So the town officials order a mass evacuation, and they do so. Save Ash's gang and a few minor characters we saw earlier. Oh, yeah, and Deoxys can create clones. Sure, movie, let's just give Deoxys whatever powers you can think of, like allowing it to make a force field. So Rayquaza then shows up, and with just one hyper beam, while the force field manages to hold, the electricity in the entire city goes out, and even the Pokeballs stop working, even the ones not created in this town. Technologically advanced city, everyone! So after 55 minutes, we finally discover the true reason the scientists were researching that greenstone. They were researching Deoxys' regenerative abilities. Speaking of which, we eventually find out why Deoxys is attacking the city. Turns out this greenstone is actually another Deoxys, and he's attacking the city so he can find him. Would have liked to find that out earlier, but okay, whatever. So Ash and the others head to a dome in the city to return the electricity to the place, therefore allowing them to use the laser to revive the green Deoxys. And while that's going on, Rayquaza busts through the force field and fights Deoxys. Oh great, a fight between 2 characters I don't give a fuck about. Lovely. But eventually, they get the power going, and the green Deoxys, as I'll call it, is revived, it reunites with Deoxys, and everything is all good. Until Rayquaza comes in and tries to ruin it. Asshole. And then everything goes haywire after Rayquaza attacks the tower, causing all the electricity in the city to go haywire, which causes all the blocks to go haywire, and fuck this shit.
David?
Oh, sorry, I just took the DVD out.
Why?
Because this final part of the film where the blocks go haywire is frankly worthless.
Seriously, in this advanced city, they don't have measures to prevent shit like the electricity short-circuiting and or going haywire?
Screw that! Especially since it distracts from the fight, which could have easily ended after the 2 Deoxyses hit Rayquaza and causing him to crash into the ground.
Besides, all you're really missing is Tori and Ash trying to use Tori's card to try and reset the system, and that's it. Nothing much is really accomplished here. And in my honest opinion, you're not missing a fucking thing by just sending the movie here. Oh, aside from Rayquaza being bestie buds with Deoxys, which I'll talk about later.
So, screw it. Film's over. So, as a story, I feel it has a lot of problems to it.
I already talked about my issues with the final part, so I won't focus too much on that. But I do have issues with the whole Deoxys motive. Mainly how long it took to find it. Because Deoxys doesn't speak, we had to get this motive from Yuko. Okay, fine. But why did it take until the 3rd act to find out why? Especially since this motive isn't really that evil. Dude's just trying to find his friend, and hell, he's not killing the humans his clones captured as we see later in the movie. He's just moving them out of the way. Now some may argue that this is a nitpick, but if it takes an hour to get this motive and it's not all that big, then I feel it's kind of a major disappointment and it really could have been brought up sooner. Then you could spend the rest of the film getting the electricity and stuff, while also dealing with Rayquaza and Deoxys, if you absolutely must have a fight with them, that is. And then the film ends with Rayquaza defeated and Deoxys and his buddy going away. But then Rayquaza would hunt them down still. Who cares? These films hardly follow the story of the previous films anyways. Besides, Deoxys and his friend could kick his ass again anyways if Rayquaza tried that, as shown with this film once they teamed up. My next issue with this film is with Tori's fear. Okay. This is a tricky thing to talk about since not everyone handles fear the same way, but god damn it, this fear Tori has bugged me as a plot point. Not so much how he got the fear, because I already made the comparison to falling in the middle of the highway, but it's what happens afterwards that I take issue with. This dude is supposed to be scared of Pokemon because of the incident 4 years ago, but I found a lot of scenes before he gets over this fear where he isn't terrified of Pokemon, and even helps them, as shown with the trash can scene. This film makes it comes off as he's only scared when the plot needs him to be scared, otherwise he's normal, or a dick. Now maybe it is possible that someone handles fear like this in the real world, but from a story perspective, it feels really off to me. I also feel that the colors in this film look so dry and bland to look at, especially in comparison to the previous films. I think I said in that top 15 it looked like Evangelion or something, but even Evangelion had better coloring than this. Now, some may say it's a nitpick, and it may end up being so, but animation is a major element in the film like this, so having, in my humble opinion, bad/bland animation is not a good thing when it comes to the film overall. Speaking of elements, how do the other elements fare? Well, the characters are meh. Ash and his gang are alright in this movie. The researchers are decent enough. The side characters are meh, just kinda there. Same with Tori. And Team Rocket is wasted again. For this film, their screen time pretty much revolves around them looking for food and either running into security or a Munchlax. That's about it. And they repeat this joke a bunch of times in this film. And since Deoxys and Rayquaza don't speak, I don't need to cover their bland asses in this. As for the music, it's mediocre once again. Like the last movie, there is no remix of the opening song they use in the anime, but the opening song in this film is pretty weak sauce. Same goes for the soundtrack of this film. I was severely underwhelmed with it, and when it wasn't being weak or underwhelming, it was incredibly boring to listen to. Oh, and the song used in the montage is pretty awful too. And they use it as the ending song. Just lovely. And since I don't talk about the voice actors, aside for jokes, that's about it for this section. And I think that's about all I can say about this film. Overall, I think this film is pretty bad. The story is problematic, the animation is problematic, the characters are meh, the music is pretty bad. It just wasn't fun for me. I wouldn't say it's the worst Pokemon movie I've seen, because I still got like 15 more movies to cover in this thing. But when it comes to the Hoenn films, I think this is one of the weakest entries thus far. So that concludes this review. I'm the Mounty, and next time we meet, I'll be tackling what many fans consider as the best Pokemon movie, Lucario and the Mystery of Mew. See you then. Okay, that's done. Let's check on the meteor. Oh, it already landed. That was unexpected.
Why am I not surprised?